go behind Blue Eyes. Stephen Roach, my friend. Finals, how good are they?
Oh, Timmy, good to talk to you, mate. How good was last week? I mentioned that the intensity is lifted right out of this hemisphere, but the points started to roll too. You generally don't see that in semi-finals, but, mate, if anyone thinks the defences weren't any good, it was just how good the attack was.
Were you surprised at the omission of David Klemmer, Wade Graham and Mitchell Pearce? Now, Freddie's still saying there's plenty of time, so these guys aren't completely out of the picture, but did it surprise you?
Maybe it's a smart move from Freddie putting these guys on notice. You know, Mitchell Pearce got the State of Origin or got the state home last year. I think Clemmer's a little bit of a surprise, but, mate, you see when you're knocked out of the premiership and have a look at the quality of the front rowers that are still in the game that are New South Welshmen. So I can understand what he's doing. It doesn't mean that those guys won't be called into the squad, but, you know, I think he's just waiting to see how other blokes finish.
Locker, as a man that spent his whole career in the middle, no doubt one of the reasons for Klemmer not being there is that Newcastle, unfortunately, just opened up like a can of worms in the middle last week, and that's where they caused their damage. Yeah,
well, that was the thing. You know, we've been waiting for a long time, and bulk of the season to see Damien Cook run out of dummy half. He absolutely destroyed them. But you know, you probably would have said in the first 15 minutes that the Newcastle Knights really put it to them, and unfortunately they couldn't go on with it. What they did is got away from their game plan, led 14 points to nil, and then all of a sudden just fell in a hole.
Yep. Okay. So what do you think of the appointment of Wayne Bennett changing subjects? He's a wily old fox, Queensland.
Yeah, I'm worried, mate. I always worry when Wayne Bennett's involved in anything. You just have to have a look at how his side's going at the moment. He is the football whisperer. And mate, he's already left a couple of high-profile players out of his squad too. So, mate, I always worry when Wayne Bennett's involved. I think it's a big lift for Queensland bringing Wayne in to coach after Kevy couldn't do it anymore because of the Broncos.
And the thing about him, at his age, his experience, his, as you say, his whispering notion, time doesn't really mean anything, does it? Because the way that he injects into teams like this is his ability to get great things out of sometimes mediocre people.
Yeah, well, Tim, he's a mystery, isn't he? I would love to play under Wayne Bennett. I don't know what it is. He's got this, I don't know, got this uncanny knack that everyone who plays or has played under him love him unless he gets rid of him at the back end of their career. But I reckon if you ask him during their career, he can just make something out of nothing. Mate, have a look at Totola last week. I don't know what the answer to this question is. I want someone to look into it for me. But how long since a forward, a front rower, who's sort of a journeyman at the moment, young Totola, scored 2 tries in the semi-final? So he's got this magic touch, a bit like Craig Bellamy, that can make you probably a little bit better than what you really are.
Nathan Cleary, well, he's just firing, isn't he? Much improved. 3 tries, a field goal.
Yeah, 3 tries in the first half, I might add. But you know the other thing too about him, and we all look at all the points they score and the goal kicks they score, and the points. But the thing I looked at was how calm he was when the Roosters started coming back. Most blokes go in their shell and start to do things that they don't normally do and don't get themselves involved in the game. But mate, he didn't change the way that he was playing. He was playing brilliantly, as I said, a hat trick in the first half. The goal kicker, the leader, mate, so calm under pressure. That's the thing that really got me about the Penrith Panthers. I was out there last week and I watched them warm up. I watched them walk out before the game to just have a look at the ground and do all that sort of stuff. Mate, they had these jukeboxes on their shoulders and dancing and like not a care in the world. I'm going, look at them going, you know what? These guys are up for this. It doesn't matter where they play and who they play. They just love their footy.
What do you think of the performance of the Roosters? You and I both discussed this last week. We said anyone that was prepared to write them off would do it at their own folly. They were 1 point shy, and they're still impossible to write off.
Timmy, they looked last week to me to be a tired footy side when Penrith went out to that big lead, and I was going, oh, how are they ever going to come back? They look tired. They haven't got Jake Friend in the middle cleaning up everywhere, but although he's back this week against the Raiders. And, mate, they missed their left side defence was horrible. But then I don't know, something happened and all of a sudden they started crawling their way back in. Look, you don't win back-to-back premierships if you haven't got any fight in you. And, mate, the Roosters, I don't know how much they've got left in them, but Jake Friend comes back this week. And, mate, I wouldn't be surprised if this is another ball terror. It's going to be a great game of footy. The Raiders, after revenge on the Sydney Cricket Ground, or they won there earlier in the year. But, mate, I just see the energy level of the Roosters just dropping a little bit week by week.
Well, we'll have to have a look at that game in just a tick, but we'll just tick a couple of other boxes from this Penrith situation. Liam Martin, I tell you what, he's made of granite, and he could just make his way into this 27-man squad. He looks like an Origin type.
Yeah, oh mate, tough as nails. There's no doubt. There's no doubting that. But mate, we are blessed. If you sit back and have a look at the whole back row in the premiership, gee, we've got some great players. It wouldn't surprise me if he makes the squad. I don't think he'll make the team. But when you look right at it and you look at the teams, does Isaiah Yeo deserve a spot in the back row before Liam Martin? So that's the big question. You can't. If they go on and they go on and play in the grand final and win the premiership, maybe you can fit all those guys in. But my question to you, mate, is does he deserve to be in there before like an Isaiah Yeo who can play lock, second row, wherever you put him?
What about Lomax or Gutherson in the centres?
Yeah, I'd go. Well, I'm like for like, so I don't think that I'd ever move Gutherson into the centres, especially in an Origin. But mate, the other kid, Lomax, he's an out-and-out superstar. So depending on which way Freddie wants to go and who's available, because we've still got a fair few games left in the premiership or in the semi-finals and the grand final. So we'll see who's healthy at the end. But I would have no worries about putting Lomax into the centres. He's going to be a great player.
What do you think, Raiders, Roosters? You see the Roosters getting a little tired. They got Sonny Bill back. They got Jake Friend back at a hooker. It's going to be a contest, Stephen.
Not bad timing for those guys to come back into the side too. And as I mentioned, I like Kyle Flanagan as a player. I like his goal kicking and all that. But mate, I reckon the Raiders are going to go at him. His defence on that left-hand side last week for the Roosters left a lot to be desired. Jake Friend will clean up the middle. There's no doubt about that. He does 50 tackles a game, and mate, and he's into blokes. I just worry a little bit about their defence on that side. It'll be interesting to see how they go. As I said, look, they're starting to lose a little bit of petrol. The Raiders, for mine, weren't great against the Sharks down on their home ground, but I reckon they were looking over their shoulder, looking at this game, the grand final replay. Jack Whiten got them back into the game after the Sharks, went off in a stormer. They started the game so well, but Jack Whiten rolled the sleeves up and scored 2 tries back to back, and then all of a sudden the Raiders were full of running. But I think they had their eye on this game this week, Jimmy, and just after what happened last year and just looking at their pack and just having a look at, how tired both sides are, I think the Raiders might have a little bit more in them.
Has Angus Crichton done enough to earn a starting spot in the Blues, the Bryden Blues?
Well, I think we've got a rush of back rowers coming through the competition at the moment. Now he played Origin only a couple of years ago, Timmy, and I think he's playing better now than what he was back when he made Origin. So, mate, depending on if the Roosters can win this week and then play in the qualifying game for the grand final, depending on how far they go, if they make it all the way through the grand final and actually win it, why wouldn't you pick Angus Crichton? But mate, there's a lot of water to go under the bridge. I know it goes pretty quickly, but these guys have still got to win. Both these sides have still got to win 3 games in a row to win the grand final. So I reckon it's such an advantage now, the way the game's played and the speed and the hype and how many 6-agains and all that sort of stuff comes into the game now. I reckon the 2 sides with a week off have got a huge advantage.
Do you pick Cody Walker at 5'8", Block?
You know what? Again, it just depends on how deep the Roosters can go. Well, look, if you ask me right now, who would you pick at 5'8", I'd probably pick him, mate. Because of we're lacking a couple of centres, so I'd probably play Jack Whiten in the centres. But Keary will definitely be in the group. But mate, it just depends on how far they go down the track. But if I was picking one now, I'd probably on form. If I looked at it in the last month, I'd probably have him in the side, mate. But I don't know how the selectors look at it.
Yeah, oh, exactly. Well, they've got an embarrassment of riches around that spot, but as you say, the centres are a little bit of an issue because they're a little bit light on. Lomax is there as well, but untried at this level. Look, Clint Gutherson has been extraordinary for Parramatta. In a team that's been spluttering at times, he has been the rock. He has been the winning mentality. I just think that he will find a spot for him somewhere in this New South Wales squad.
Yeah, Timmy, it's an interesting point that you make. When last week against Melbourne, they got off to a flyers too. But I'm still I think Mitchell Moses is a great player, but I'm still waiting to see him do it on the huge scale, against the side that you've got to beat. Now I watched them last week when they started so well against Melbourne, and I was looking to Mitchell Moses when Melbourne hit back to do something for the Eels. But you're right. It wasn't the halfback that got him, going again. It was Clint Gutherson. He's the man that really put everything on the line there to try and get his side after a great start back into the game after Melbourne, who I think were the best team of the weekend. And it wasn't Mitchell Moses trying to, actually ignite something. He sort of went into his shell a little bit, I think.
How do you reckon this Eels-Rabbitohs game's going to go, Blocker? Campbell Graham, a lot of these other young guys coming through. He probably wasn't at his best last week, but he's got huge potential. We've seen a lot of names coming forward. You mentioned the young forward there, Totola.
Yeah, 2 tries to Totola last week. As I said, I haven't seen that in the semi-final for, I don't know, I can't remember when, but it's a sort of thing Wayne Bennett's genius at, getting blokes up for big games. I just think his demeanour and the way that he coaches and the way that South will come out this week, they are up there, in the top 2 teams as in form and the ability to score points. Last week against the Newcastle Knights, after the Knights started so well, I was really surprised at the ease that the Rabbitohs were able to score tries. They got a lot of vocal points in their side, and we already mentioned Damien Cook out of dummy half, but Corey Allen looks like he's found his spot at fullback, and the 2 halves. Reynolds just sits back on his heels and he's so calm. He's got a beautiful kicking game, and Cody Walker, when he decides to run, is virtually unstoppable. So, if you're asking me who I think will win this week, I think the Rabbits will take care of the Eels.
All right, it's the Raiders in a close one and the Rabbits for Stephen. Is that the way we're looking at it?
That's the way we're looking at it, but I've been wrong before, Timmy.
once back in the late 1970s, Blocker. Look, you've already mentioned the brilliance of Damien Cook. I think we expect him to fire up again this weekend. He's that kind of player. When he gets a little bit of form, he just runs into it. They're going to be 2 cracking games of football, and I think, really, to be honest, we have successfully gone behind blue eyes.
Is that it, Bubby? That's it. That's how good's that. No worries.